Hi, here I am again. You can't get rid of me. Um, Notice my shirt. It's from Field of Dreams. The guys come out of the cornfield to play ball. Love that movie. Love the shirt. And if you haven't watched the movie Field of Dreams, you should. Even if you're not a baseball fan, it kind of helps restore your faith in the faith of mankind. It's a pretty special kind of movie. Okay. Anyway, okay. So let's get going here. Um, my regular camera isn't working tonight, so I'm using a different one. And I don't know why it's not working. I'm on a different computer, but the camera should work with it. But that's all irrelevant. Okay, here we go. We've talked about the writing process. We've talked about the first three steps in the writing process. We've detailed them out twice for you in the sense of what pre-writing and organizing means and what a rough draft means. Okay, so today, and we talked about a first revision, right, and what a first revision should do, and what you should do with a first revision. Well, today we're moving on to the second revision. Kind of obvious after a first revision. What would you think comes next? A second revision. Okay. So, what do we do in a second revision? Okay, this is where we really shift gears. Up until this point, I've been saying to you, don't worry about grammar, don't worry about spelling, don't worry about punctuation, don't worry about sentence structure. That ends now. Once you get to step 4 in the writing process, and I want you to go through this whole process every time you write something, not just for me, but for everybody. And here's one of the reasons why. You have probably spent a total of an hour to an hour and a half doing all the writing that you've done for me so far. I would bet that there is nobody among you who has never sat down to write a paper and an hour or so after they started, they have nothing written. With this process, you're writing right away, you're getting stuff down, you're in the process of it. Okay. And the other thing is, you're not frightened about every word you're writing. People that try to do one and done have to worry about every word they're writing all the time. Through the first 3 steps of the writing process, you haven't done that. Okay, step 4 is where all of that changes. Now, grammar becomes important, sentence structure becomes very important, punctuation becomes very important, spelling becomes very important. All of the things that you have to stop and think about in writing become really important. But that's what step 4 is about. This is step 4. You don't do that when you first start writing, or you make writing a task. We're making writing a process that will just flow for you. Okay, so first of all, sentence structure. And I write a lot about sentence structure in the lesson. All of you know that a sentence has 3 requirements. You have to have a verb, and the verb is the action or state of being that the sentence is writing about. You have to have a subject, so you have to have a doer of the action. And the sentence has to be able to make sense by itself. Okay? So if I say Josh threw the ball, we have a verb, threw, the action word. We have the doer of the action, Josh. That's our subject. And the sentence all by itself makes sense. We know what it means. Okay. On the other hand, if we say when Josh threw the ball, we're left with a question. Yeah, what happened? Okay. That's not a sentence. Josh threw the ball is a sentence. When Josh threw the ball is not a sentence. Okay. So every sentence has to have a verb, an action word, or a state of being. And so the action word in that sentence was threw. What's state of being mean? This pie smells great. Is the pie doing anything? No. It's the state of being of the pie. Smells. The pie smells great. Okay? Or I am late tonight. Okay? Am I doing anything? No. I just am. It's my state of being. That's the verb word there. Our subject, the doer. So pie, not doing anything, but the pie is what it's about, so that's the subject. So the subject of a sentence has to be a noun or a pronoun. And you know that a noun is names a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. Okay? That's what a noun does. So, a person or home or house, a thing, uh, buffalo, a place, state of being, a state of being, not being hit with one right away, but anyway, person, place, or thing, or a state of being. Like sleeping is a wonderful thing. Sleeping is a state of being. Okay, um, so subject has to be a noun or a pronoun. A pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun. So I said, Sally went to the store, Sally bought salami, Sally bought bread, Sally came home. Well, you wouldn't write that when you got beyond first grade, right? You'd write, Sally went to the store, she bought some bread and salami, and then she came home. So you're using a pronoun, she, in place of the word Sally. A pronoun takes the place of a noun. And I explain all of this in the lesson, but I wanted to touch upon it. And I will put the pages in where all of this stuff is dealt with. Okay. And then I explain to you what punctuation is all about. Okay. And I give you hints as to how you figure out what punctuation goes where. Read those hints carefully. Read those hints carefully because it makes punctuation so much simpler than struggling over so many things. Okay. And spelling is obviously spelling, I assume on all of your computers, when you misspell a word, it'll underline it in red. Then you need to find the right word. But you can't just tap on it because it'll give you alternatives and it might be a different word. So, be careful with that. And grammar, the grammar rules. You've learned all the grammar rules. We'll talk about more and more of them as we go on. But that's what we're doing in the second revision. We're getting our piece of writing from something that's just kind of thrown together and organized and being specific and such to something that really communicates. You're the only person who can make you a better writer. So you have to want to make you a better writer. Okay? You do. I want you to be a better writer. I want to coach you to be a better writer. But you're the only person that can make you a better writer. So you have to think about all those grammar rules that you learned in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Too often high school teachers don't go into grammar. Now in my high school, we did. We had a separate grammar book with all sorts of grammar rules in it. And actually, there was a grammar book that we kept for all 4 years. We bought our books. But then separate exercises and everything for each individual year. But in the typical high school grammar, teachers stopped teaching grammar a long time ago because it was hard for the students, so they didn't want to make them work hard. Too bad. You know the grammar. You've had it. I taught junior high school before any of you were born, and I know we taught a lot of grammar in junior high school, and all the kids learned it. You know that stuff, okay? And especially if you've had foreign language, which probably all of you have, you know about grammar. So follow the grammar rules. Okay, so then the second revision is taking what you have, rewriting it, making it better, possibly eliminating some stuff, but making sure that everything that comes between the periods is a complete sentence. Every group of words has to be a grammatically complete sentence, okay? So make sure you do that. And I'll give you page numbers so you can check on the stuff in your book. And I wrote a lot about it in the lesson, so you'll see it in the lesson too, okay? Read the lessons, read the lessons, read the lessons. I spend a lot of time writing them, and you'll learn or review a lot through the lessons, okay? But you have to want to make you a better writer. Okay, the other thing we want to talk about today is we are going to write a research paper this semester. Don't let that scare you. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about writing a research paper. Now, Very few of you have ever written a research paper. Your teachers may have called them research papers in high school, but they weren't. They were reports. In a research paper, you have to use a minimum of 6 different sources, whether it's books or articles or magazines or whatever. You have to use at least 6, and they don't just go in your bibliography or works cited at the end. As you put an idea into your paper, even if you put that idea entirely in your own words, you're going to have to tell exactly where that idea comes from. I'll show you how to do that. Don't worry about it. But with what you wrote in high school, you probably did basically a book report. And they called it a research paper because it was something you didn't know about. So I'll take you step by step through that. Everything you need to know to write a really good research paper. We'll make it simple for you, okay? But you got to do it my way. You got to do it my way because my way is the right way. What you did in high school was writing a report, okay? I just had a thumb pop up on my screen. I don't know why. Okay, so anyway, what are you going to write your research paper about? That's entirely up to you. But number one, it's got to be something that you are interested in. And number two, it's got to be something that you want to learn more about. And number three, it's got to be something that you did not write about before. Okay? There's a fourth thing. It can't come from here. You have to learn and put the information in your paper from things that you research. That's why it's called a research paper. So it does not, if it's coming out of here, then you're wasting your time. Okay? It does not come out of your head. Don't write about something you already know a lot about. You won't write a research paper, then you'll write an opinion paper. And that is not acceptable. I don't want anybody to get a bad grade in this course. Okay? So do it my way, and I'll show you how to do it step by step by step. So again, if you've written any kind of papers in the past, don't write about what you wrote about then. So, what do you write about? Most of you are in health allied programs. A lot of students write about diseases. Somebody in their family may have had breast cancer, okay? And you want to find out more about it. This is your chance. I had a student a few years ago who, when she was anxious, she would pull out clumps of her hair and then her scalp would bleed a little bit. She wanted to find out more about that, so she did her research paper on that. Alcoholism is a huge problem in this country, as you know. We had a speaker at Trocare who said 1 out of every 3 people who ever taste alcohol will end up an alcoholic, okay? Now, let's say there's 15 people in this class. I'm only estimating at this point because I haven't gotten the roster yet. But anyway, what that means is out of the 15 people in this class, 5 of you will become alcoholics. Okay? That's a scary, scary thought. Okay? I've never been able to figure out why people use alcohol for anything. I don't know. It doesn't taste good. Who likes it, you know? But anyway, you have to condition yourself to like it. Why would you do that? Okay, but anyway, there's lots of things that have to do with alcoholism. I've had students write really good papers about Alcoholics Anonymous. I've had students write good papers about breaking the grip of alcohol. I've had students write papers. I had a student write a great paper about adult children of alcoholics. And what she found in her research is the children of alcoholics, as they grow up, kind of have the same personality traits, which is pretty interesting because that alcoholic in their house forms them to be a certain way, okay? And that's a shame, but it's what happens. So alcoholism is a big topic. And why? Probably everybody in this class either has an alcoholic in their family or has an alcoholic in their extended family. Unless your family is Muslim. If they're Muslim, then the Muslims generally do not use alcohol at all. Okay. But the only people I've ever had who could say that they had no touch with alcoholism were families that were of the Muslim religion. Okay. Um, I had a student write a really good research paper about fly fishing. Okay. This person loved fly fishing, and so they researched out all the equipment, all the ways you make your own flies, the best places to fly fish in Western New York. It was really a good paper. Um, I've had some very good papers on the topic of death and dying. There are some great books written on the whole dying process. Um, and we had a vice president on the faculty who had been clinically dead and came back. Um, she told me she saw herself floating above the room and could tell me everything the doctor said while she was dead. I mean, it was amazing. Okay, um, so that's a pretty fascinating topic. Um, you might have television shows that you really like. Would the content of those shows be worth a research paper? No, absolutely not. I don't care what happens on television shows, okay? The content of a television show is not worth your while. But there still are some things that we used to call soap operas. They're continuous shows from week to week to week to week. They used to be day to day to day to day. And it's like, why did people watch them? Now, that might be a good topic. Why do people watch particular television shows? You could research that and find out. You might have an author you love. Okay, so you can find out more about that author. And go into why the author wrote what he wrote. Just a biography doesn't cut it. You can get a biography out of one book. So don't try to do that. You need to use material from at least 6 different sources. So I'm trying to show you that it's very broad. Between now and the time you post your lesson for this week, I want you to have at least 2 topics in mind, and I want you to post those. You are not tied into those topics. You may get into them and say, oh, I don't like this at all. Can I change? Yeah, you can. Okay. But I want you to be thinking about it. So along with your assignment, give me 2 topics, and it says it in the assignment. Okay? Questions, you know where to get me.